In the meantime, while you're doing that, I will introduce you to Wendy. And so Wendy Marks is a branding and reinvention authority whose passion is focusing on people wanting a more flourishing next act. She has 5 successful reinventions, rebrandings, and holds an MSW, an MBA, and an MS in journalism. It's so hilarious to me. Practically every person in Coffee Club has a list of acronyms. It is something about this crowd that it's like we always attack everything through learning. It's really very funny. She has her first book, Thriving at 50. You want to hold that up, Wendy, so people can see it? And everybody will get a download of her 10 tips for personal branding, which is a download sheet, which she'll leave you with. So I think maybe, Wendy, to get started here, maybe talk a little bit about your personal branding experience. If you've repivoted several times, maybe just give us a very short, concise idea of what that is, and then we'll get to your presentation, and then we'll take questions as we go, and then we'll have more questions at the end. But I'd love to hear the beginning part about you, so everybody knows who you are.
All right, that sounds great. And hi, everybody, and excited to be with you all. And as Leslie just said, I've had 5 reinventions and personal brandings in my own life. And the funny thing is that I used to keep quiet about them. I'll never forget years ago, I was talking to a recruiter, and I'm proudly sharing with her my degrees, my different experiences, and she looked at me as if I were some sort of nutcase. So after that happened, I trimmed my resume, I eliminated a degree, I became a different person. And now finally, in this last evolution of myself, I've fessed up and proudly own everything that I've done. But it took me a long time to get there. And I think now as well, people are a lot more receptive to people. They don't expect you to be in one job or one career for life. And over the course of my career, initially I was a social worker, then I became a newspaper reporter, a marketer, owned and ran a PR agency, and now in my 5th career in reinvention and rebranding, a career coach for people who want to have a more thriving next act. And my website is thrivingat50plus.com. It's 50 with a numeral. The plus is written out because the damn internet doesn't let you have a plus sign. But my book is Thriving at 50 with a plus sign. So I'm a little schizophrenic, but I think it still works. So that in a nutshell is a little bit about me. And in my PR business that I had for over 20 years, a lot of what we did, it was a B2B PR firm, was take people from virtual anonymity to industry icon. So it was a type of personal branding. These were business people that for the most part were virtually unknown. And as a result of what we did, they developed a reputation, and they were out there and known in their industry. And I'll just add before I just wanted to add one other thing, that I became fascinated with this whole topic of personal branding in 1997 when I read an article that Tom Peters wrote for Fast Company. And he talked about creating the brand called You. And it resonated so much for me that I then started actually writing a column for a number of years. Actually, it was a blog for Fast Company on personal branding. And as I mentioned, in my PR business, really emphasize the thought leadership and the personal brand.
So actually, then personal branding started a lot earlier than we all think of it. I guess it just sort of finally made its way. I've heard that article referenced several times. I'm going to dig it out because I've heard it referenced many, many times. But why was it? Do you know, Wendy, why it came up back then? For me, it came up when I guess like 1987, and then when all the big downsizing was happening, and so many people were being downsized or pushed out of corporate life, and they didn't know who they were once they were no longer a Vogue girl or a, Mary Claire girl or whatever it was you were. And I remember people in my business struggling and saying exactly that, like, who am I? I don't know who I am because I lived the big brand. Is that what it
I
was?
think that exactly. I think that's precisely what was going on.
Yeah, because you were absorbed under the brand in the past.
Right, exactly. You thought of yourself as an IBM or an AT&T or,
Right. And you wore that proudly.
yeah, right. Yeah.
So cool. Should we start with your slides and then we'll ask questions? If you guys have questions, Wendy has a great presentation for us. And ask questions in the chat box. And if you want to ask live, just say me and I'll watch the box for Wendy and I'll
And,
call on you.
and if anything isn't clear or you want clarification, just let me know.
So Tina says she's at the beginning of an idea, so timing on this call is good. Great. You'll see the link to Mel Niskaman's articles on Covey Club. Mel's our humorous writer all about elder care. She's very, very funny. And Leslie Stevens says, my role has always been behind the scenes, clients first. I know it has changed, but I've always felt that I should not be in the limelight. And Karen Harrow says, I'm not sure if my branding is effective or even accurate. Okay. And there's the link also if you want to pick up Wendy's website.
All right. Well, good. It sounds like a great audience, and let's talk about personal branding. What I want to do today is focus on what and why personal branding. Why we should even be talking about it. Talking a little bit about branding yourself today in our crazy changed world. I'm going to share some strategies and tips, and then we'll have Q&A. But as I'm going through this, if you have questions, feel free to ask so I can answer them as we're going through. And I already introduced myself, so I don't think we need to go through this again. As far as I mentioned, the world has changed. That, as Leslie was mentioning, we used to have a job for life. We identified with a company, that was our brand. And that today is gone by the boards. It's a myth, non-existent. And unfortunately, age discrimination has become even worse. And in fact, maybe you've seen, there were some things online where people were referring to boomers as grandma killers with COVID-19. Yeah.
Oh my God, I did not.
Isn't that terrible? Yeah, it's just disgusting. And of course, we're all locked behind masks and at least 6 feet away. And at the same time, more people are working from home. I don't know if most of you are working from home, but at least roughly about a third of people are expected to work full-time from home through the end of the year. And yet at the same time, there's so much more screen time. We're all online, we're on Zoom calls, we're on social media, so that has really increased. And what does that all mean? It's actually, I see this as an opportunity, that it's a terrific time to build your personal brand. People, for one, are more accessible. We don't necessarily have the secretary gatekeepers so that you can reach people. Also, because people have more time, they're not commuting, they're online more, it can become easier to reach out. And yet at the same time, a personal brand is even more essential because you're not in front of anybody. It's so easy to get lost. You're out of, your face is invisible, you're not around, and it's very easy for people to forget about you. And one way to ensure that is by having a personal brand. And I love this quote from Amazon's Jeff Bezos, that your brand is what people say about you when you're not in the room. The fact is that even if you think you don't have a personal brand, you do. People form an opinion about you. You have a reputation. The key with personal branding is to take control of it. You don't want other people to define you. You want to define yourself. And this is a quote from that Fast Company article. And I can share that with you, Leslie. And
Oh, do you have the article? Because
I don't have it in front of me to put in the chat, but we can send it to people as a follow-up.
Fantastic. Yeah, if you send it to Marissa, she'll disperse it to everybody.
I
That'd be
would
to have
do
it.
that.
Everybody references it. I read it eons ago, but
Yeah,
he was the guy.
right. And it's a wonderful, wonderful article. And this was a great quote: to be in business today, your most important job is to be head marketer for the brand called you. And it couldn't be truer, more true today. And if you're going to remember anything from today, this is it. If you don't brand yourself, somebody else will.
Right.
And you want to be the director of your life, not a passive onlooker. You want to take control, define how you're seen, how you want to be seen. Is everybody am I on target with everybody? Anybody have any questions?
Anybody?
Right.
You could unmute. Oh, Carolyn, do you have a question, or are you just saying right on? She's like, fine.
Okay, good. High five. Okay.
Yeah, I'm looking for questions. Okay, no questions
Right.
yet.
This
Okay.
is actually from my book that I mentioned, Thriving at, it actually, I realized this says, it should be Thriving at 50 plus with the plus sign. Even I get confused with my two different names.
That's
But
all right.
in
We get it.
any case, good. This is from my book. And as you can see, personal branding is one of the key principles to reinvent and rebrand yourself. And my book focuses primarily on people 50 plus, but to be honest, everything that I mention is good for anybody. You don't have to be 50 plus.
Is there anything that kicks in at 50 plus? Is it more ageism? Is that
Yes, that's what it is. It's more ageism. You're suddenly feeling that no one wants to hire you. It's more difficult to find work. They're not casting calls put out for people who are 50 plus.
Right.
So that's really the key difference. So in a sense, in a way, a personal brand becomes even more important, but it's certainly important at 40 plus or any age. And what I wanted to share with everybody today is 5 key strategies for your personal brand. And I'm going to go through these one by one, and feel free to ask any questions with any of them. So first is introspection. And people think you can just kind of sit on a couch and go, oh, what should I do today? Well, it doesn't work like that. You really need to do what I refer to as a skills inventory, where you identify your hard and soft skills. And actually on my website, I have an example of a skills inventory in the resource section of my website. And I'll give that to Marissa as well. She can include a link for that. Another great thing to do is to get a read on how people think of you. And what's a simple way to do that is to ask 4 to 6 people to describe you just in 3 words, so that you can immediately see if you think of yourself as a leader and they're referring to you as shy and retiring, you can see that something is off. So it gives you a great idea of how people see you and if that matches up to how you want to be seen. So you can quickly see where are some gaps.
Wendy, who are the people you should, do you have an idea of who you should ask? I mean, we always talk about putting a kitchen cabinet together where you pull people from when you were little and when you know, different stages of your life, or are you talking mainly just corporate life, or does it matter to find those words for you? Because that's a real exercise that we have talked about a lot, and it's a really important exercise.
Yeah, I would suggest that you have a diverse group. You don't want to go out to everybody who's the same because people will obviously have different perceptions. So it can be people in your work life, people if you're doing volunteer work, people you volunteer with, you can ask a friend or two. So just to make sure that you're getting people from all walks of your life.
And what happens if you get very different things? Or
If
different,
if you're getting very different things from all these people, you might want to go out to a few more people because eventually you're going to find some patterns. Not everybody is going to be defining you totally different. So the key is to see what is being said about you by the most number of people. And if there's, yeah, go on.
Mandy's asking, what do you think about doing a survey monkey to see how people would describe you?
Yeah, that's a very good idea. And I think that's a very easy, makes it very easy for people to do. And the only thing is with the Survey Monkey, you don't want to limit what they say so that if somebody, they need to answer, so you would have to leave it very open-ended because I wouldn't want to prejudice what somebody says.
You don't want to lead them. You want to see what,
Exactly.
so do open-ended questions.
Right.
And
Mhm.
how many people, Wendy, would you say is the
I
minimum?
would I would say 4 to 6. You might want to go to 10 if you need to, but
Oh,
yeah,
that's doable. Okay.
yeah, we're not talking the world here.
Okay. And Coraline's saying that over the weekend she asked 5 people for feedback, and it was interesting to see some common themes. She said it was also fascinating to receive people's views. Some people gave it more thought than others. Yeah, of course.
Were you surprised in what they said?
No, I wasn't surprised. I think what surprised me is the people who I thought would give it time didn't give it time. And I felt two out of the 5 really got me, and it was really, I felt seen and understood. So I thought they hit it out of the park. It was more confirmation I was on the right path.
Oh, that's great.
And then Linda Thomas is saying, WW, do you know this Mentimeter? Linda, have you tried this? Do you want to talk about it for a sec? People can add keywords and it gives you a word cloud.
Yeah, I used it for a totally different purpose. I was trying to get at some key strategies that we were doing from a big committee meeting. And we asked people to list their 3 sort of attributes that they wanted in this certain event. But I think you could use it for this kind of thing too. But you can just structure the question, and then people can give you, 3 words or 3 short phrases. And if you're doing it live, it's kind of cool because it builds a word cloud like on the spot. So in terms of like doing it for a big committee meeting, it was really a cool visual, but it might be helpful just in terms of tracking feedback too.
Mentimeter. Okay.
How do you spell that?
It's in the chat. M-E-N.
Yeah, I put it in the chat. It's just like it sounds. Yeah.
Okay.
I wonder what that means.
And they have a free tool. I think they probably have more layers that are added on top of that. I've only used it a few times, and I've just used the free version.
Cool. Awesome. And Tina says she's done this a few months ago and was very helpful. Coworkers, past employees, friends, and family. Very interesting.
Well, I'm impressed that you people are all ahead of the curve in terms of what you're doing.
Hey, this is the Covey Club. You are.
I guess it is. And this is the second strategy, which is, let me just make sure I did, which is creating your brand. And here you want to look at your values, your vision, your mission, and your purpose. And one good way to do this is to create a branding document for yourself. And I have one of those on my website also. So again, I'll give that to Marissa. She can share with you. I have an example of what somebody did. And the whole idea with this is to understand what you're standing for, what you want to be, what is your guiding purpose, and also your values, which are so important.
But how do you still make that, Wendy, unique? Because a lot of people, there's so many people in the world, right? How do you then, there's probably big groups of us who, how do you then, make that kind of generalization of a person, more unique? Do you start working on colors? Do you start working on all that kind of stuff once you've defined all this basic groundwork stuff?
After you would do all of this, you would look at coming up with perhaps a logo if you're in your own business, something like you said, colors or ways that go along with your overall brand. But the idea here is, yes, none of us are unfortunately truly unique, but we do have certain core values that are important to us. There's a purpose, a mission that we have in our life and in our careers. So it's really tapping into what's driving you.
Mm-hmm.
And it could be this, somebody else could be having the same things, but this is your passion. And you really want to make sure that you're tapping into that and conveying it. And then once you have done all of this, you want to then package your brand. And part of the packaging is, as Leslie was saying, coming up with the image, your colors, your branding. And you also want to create an elevator pitch. And I'm sure most of you, does everybody know what an elevator pitch is? I'm sure this is a savvy group, but you probably all know that. And what I find with elevator pitches, particularly as people get older, they're not as good necessarily as millennials are in doing an elevator pitch. We're so focused, and I'm probably the same way, too focused on credentials, less focused on our passions, what drives us, what makes us human, what engages us. You want to have an elevator pitch that makes you likable, that makes people want to know more. It's not just a litany of jobs or things that you've done. That's really boring. And you also want to be consistent. So that's a very important part of branding, so that you're using the same photo. You don't want to look 25 in one picture and 45 in another. You want to look the same age. You don't want to have multiple names. And then I have here, I just pulled together two different elevator pitches. And one is pretty bland. The other one is a little, probably could even be better, but it's a little more passionate. It also ties together what you were with what you want to do. The key is to tell a story in your elevator pitch. So you're linking your past to your present and your future. And you want to do it in a way that makes sense. So you don't want to say that you were a consultant and you're now becoming a deep sea diver. I mean, it doesn't hang together. So you need some way of connecting your different careers so that it does hang together.
When
Does
you
that
said millennials do a better job, do you have a one in mind that you've heard or that you thought was really good that stood out for you? Because this is a good example of, yeah, it's a basic thing, but
Yeah, it's not brilliant. I do have an example further along of a absolutely smacking LinkedIn profile. I think way millennials do a better job is that they're very passionate. They are not talking about focusing on their credentials. It's that they love to do whatever, and this is what gets them up in the morning, and they're so excited about it. So that there's that human element that's easy to miss when you're creating an elevator pitch.
and do
Uh,
you find this, Wendy, this, because this does sound like, and you just said LinkedIn, this is kind of what that intro on LinkedIn now has become, right? Before you list your,
yes,
before you list your, all your accomplishments now,
yes,
kind
that
of mission statement that you have to put at the top of LinkedIn, right?
yes, that is true. And I have in a few slides on, I have what I consider a brilliant example of someone.
Okay. Anybody have any questions for Wendy at this point? Nope, you're okay? All right. If anybody has any questions, just unmute and jump in, or you can type into the chat box. Keep going.
And this is what I was saying before, and I can't emphasize it enough. You want to humanize and be likable. You don't just want to pound your chest and say, oh, I'm terrific, hire me. You want to be delivering value. You want to be caring about the other person and not just focused on yourself. And it's being likable, being generous, that it's not just about you, it's about others. And if you take that approach, you can't go wrong because everybody wants to be cared about.
Mm-hmm.
And then delivering your brand. It's important when you do this to focus on a niche. There are 3 million people who can say do social media, but if you focus on a narrow niche in social media, you're distinguishing yourself from other people. So you want to become some sort of expert. And I'm sure all of you, you seem all very talented. You, I'm sure, have some area where you excel that you can focus on and emphasize. And you want to be consistent. You don't want to position yourself one day as an industry expert in one field and another day in something else. You want to take your measure, evaluate what you're doing, and if it's not quite going right, pivot. There's nothing wrong with continuing to pivot. Things change all the time, and we need to also.
Can I ask you a question, Wendy?
Of
Rana,
course.
jump in. Rana has a question. Do you want to talk about your pivot you're trying to do?
Sure, and I don't know if it's the right time in the presentation I posted in the chat, but I'm working in an organization now that's pretty high profile, and I have to be very careful about what I say online and whatnot. But I don't plan on staying there for the rest of my career, and I'd like to start my own consulting business. And I'm wondering, how do you build an effective profile and build your brand when you have to work with such restrictions on marketing yourself online?
Do they not allow you, for example, to have your own blog?
You can do it, but it has to be very focused on the organization, what the organization does, and particularly for the department I work in, I have to be even more careful. Um, so there's not a lot that even commenting on articles, I have to be careful because if it relates to another company, it could cause issues. It's pretty limited in terms of what I can post online. So I'm finding it very difficult to
Yeah.
even post on LinkedIn because I'm not sure if I'm going to run afoul of some guideline that we have, or if I'm going to cause some problems for my department down the line if something comes up. So it's pretty challenging, and I'm kind of blocked right now because of that.
Yeah, that's a shame. Are you able to build your profile within the company so that you can, for example, you mentioned you're in one department, is it possible to become more prominent within the overall organization? So,
Yeah, I mean, that's a good point. We do have internal blogs that we can participate in, and
yeah,
No, it's a good way to start. Build yourself within the company first, and people from the outside will get to know you that way. Through the
yeah.
company, people will talk about you. But that's hard when you have to manage both of those things. That's
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I could cause a diplomatic incident by posting the wrong thing. So you're kind of paralyzed in terms of what you put out there. But
Yeah.
thank you, that's a good idea.
we have one woman. I'll have Marissa post it. She is a writer for us, and she did a podcast with us. Her name is Jessica Scott, and she's actually she's in the Army, and she's a professor at West Point, and she writes romance fiction.
Oh, I love it.
And she's pivoting into romance fiction, and she started doing it, she said, in officer training school because she was so bored, but she had to do it under a pseudonym. She had to build up this pseudonym over time because she couldn't, the Army would censor everything, and she wasn't allowed to put the two together at all. And in fact, most of her students don't know who she is, but she writes all these, they're very popular. I think she's got like 8 books out. She's
Oh,
like
wow.
in the romance area, and it involves women in military. She wanted to put out a different look at how she feels like the stereotypes out there are not right. So she created this separate persona, and now when she's retiring from the military, they get to retire very early, obviously.
Yeah.
She's going to pivot into being a writer under this other name, and I guess eventually maybe she'll come out as who she is. But it's a kind of crazy thing, but you might relate in some way. That I put the 2 links, Marissa put the 2 links in there for you.
Interesting. Thank you.
And this is the LinkedIn profile that I was telling you about. And I have a link here too. And Marissa's going to share the slides. But I just thought this was so well done.
Oh, this is the one you like? Do you think
Yeah, I just love it. This woman is a copywriter, so she's obviously a talented one. It's not somebody I know. So she says, I love selling brands. I hate selling myself. So here's quick things about me and my work. In, out, nobody gets hurt. So right off the bat, you're hooked. And then I won't read the whole thing, but it's very compelling. Here's this one here. I'm a digital junkie with 23,000 Twitter followers. I need to follow this woman. I love every freaking thing about the web. So it's very engaging. You feel like this is somebody you want to know.
Well, she's really very authentic here. She's not, say that there's a generational divide. I mean, this would be most, we were brought up much more corporate-y and keeping your personal separate. So, I mean, she's talking about her husband diagnosed with cancer. I mean, you really, that's not something most executives,
right?
Who are, not 30 would talk about. But do you think that's right, Wendy? Do you think we should be talking about stuff like that? Should we be breaking down the way that we've always behaved, or do you think that it's that we have to be who we are, how we were raised?
I think it's important to be true to yourself, that if you're not comfortable having that sort of personal information, there's no reason to mention it. Uh, I think it's always good to show some vulnerability.
Mhm.
That makes you more human and more relatable. But again, how much personal information you need to share, you have to be true to yourself.
But the
So,
tone is good. It breaks down when you're
yes.
saying, yep, and it's very engaging. Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah. Mhm.
Certainly, I've never read a LinkedIn profile like that.
Right. And mine is more corporate, and this one, like you said, is
So is mine.
it's really out there. Yeah. And then I I don't know if this link actually works, but I it'll work on the PowerPoint that I gave that Marissa's going to send. But I'm a video. I don't like to admit it, but I am admitting it. I'm a video phobe. I don't like to be on video. I think it's probably my age that I'm not natural on camera. And when my book came, I did a little video taking it out. I was so excited and thrilled. And I thought this video, and you'll be able to see it on the PowerPoint. I thought it came across well, and it was simple to do. I just did it on my iPhone. And my whole point with this is that we need to start, and I include myself, we need to start embracing video, that people just love it and snap it up. Plus, again, it makes us, puts you in front of people. So that one thing that I plan to work on actually is to increase and up my video skills. So I wanted to just give you some inspiration that if I'm doing this, you can certainly do it.
So it's Mandy. Do you suggest to do like our elevator pitch in the video, or what specifically, Wendy?
Do something that you want to show people something special about you. I don't know if an elevator pitch actually would be that exciting in a video, but I don't know what sort of work do you do, Mandy?
I'm lost.
You haven't figured out what you want to do yet.
I'm I have to come up with something that makes sense in the region that I'm located. I'm close to Illinois and I'm in Iowa, so I have to rethink what I'm doing.
Okay. But I think any video that's going to be educational, you don't want to just have something, then this one really isn't educational, but it was something that I shared on LinkedIn because I wanted people to get excited about my book. But something that's educational that'll get people excited and want to learn more. And
Yeah, those are good. There's that guy, Neil Patel.
oh yes.
You know who he is? He's a branding marketer guy. And
Yeah.
I stumbled across him. Marissa, maybe you can find a link from him. And he just cuts these videos in front of, a blank background, Mandy. And he is always posting things. He has a big branding company. And he's like, 3 tips to using your social media to get more followers, 3 tips to blah, blah, blah. And these are 3 minutes. And he goes, here's step 1. He's just imparting information. And he's just, he happens to be in the branding area. So I'm interested. But whatever, I don't know what it is you do, but whatever it is, if you can teach, that is something people will, and in their short, they generally tell you stay under 3 minutes. That's why a segment on TV is 3 minutes, is because that's our attention span.
Right.
But if you can just teach the things that like what do you do?
I used to be in branding, ironically. So
Well, everybody wants to know how to brand. They don't know what they're doing, whatever you're, whatever you're passionate about.
Yeah, I can tell with a lot of small businesses in my area, branding is not there. So
Right. But that's one way, and I found my way to him. And I can't afford him. I don't have that kind of money for Covey, but he's like first in my head if and I watch all he does and I follow a lot of it, and he puts them out, I'd say once a week, and they're brilliant. So it's one way to get yourself out there. Has anybody else done anything like that? Have you guys done any kind of videos? Anybody? Kate says a great tool for video creation is Adobe Spark. I don't know it. There's a free version online. You can mix photos, video, and everything. Really professional results that are affordable. Cool. Adobe Spark. Don't know it. Okay.
I do videos pretty much regularly, depends upon my mood, but for giving tips, on what to wear or shopping or stuff.
People find you that way, Scarlett?
People do. People find me, believe it or not, people have hired me because they've seen me on Facebook doing stuff. Yeah. I'd rather they didn't find me through Facebook so I could get away from Facebook. But
Me too. I want to blow that thing up. I understand. But that's great. And everybody will watch videos today. You just do.
Scarlett, what else? How do you do your videos? What do you do them with?
I either do it on my iPhone or on my Mac, and I sometimes do them live. Sometimes I record them,
Mhm.
and then it could be about a styling tip, or gray hair, the COVID, not being able to dye your hair or something like that, or how to hide wrinkles, like all kinds of stuff.
We had a very good work from home meeting like this, a good webinar with Scarlett and another friend who does styling right in the height of COVID, when nobody, like all our roots were down to here, we were freaking out. So that was very helpful.
Well, that sounds good.
We got to put our bras back on and get going here. So
Exactly. Okay, keep going, Wendy. Let's see.
There goes.
So Mandy's saying, I understand you need to have a green screen to prevent having the line in the video. Is that correct?
I'm sorry, what was the question?
Do you have to have a green screen in order to do video?
So the tip I was given is you need to have a green screen if you're going to promote another image in your background. I learned this. I put a blue screen behind me, and it gets rid of the line so your hair looks normal.
Hmm.
Green screen will help you. I know with Zoom you can get a green screen and that will definitely help you, but you don't know, you could use it with white sometimes, and depending on your computer you can throw things up. You'll still get, like Scarlett's using the background. Sometimes you'll get that slow-mo kind of thing back there. But there are green screens that you can attach even to your chairs. I've seen that. The Zoom people showed that to us once. And it moves with the back of your chair. If you go on Amazon and look, you can literally just attach to the back of your chair and put whatever you want in back of you.
Huh.
It's kind of nutty. All right, keep going, Miss Wendy.
All right, some other tips. You don't want to be schizophrenic in your profiles. You don't want to be outgoing in one and an introvert in another. This is a really good time to warm up old contacts. If you're like me, you probably have 1 million people on LinkedIn that you haven't spoken to in ages. And it's a good time to go out to these people. Now, don't go out to them and immediately ask them to help you. And if you're warming them up, you might want to share a little bit of news, share an article, something that shows that you're thinking about them. It's also a good time to create new contacts. And the key with all of this is to be a giver. You want to give, you don't want to take. You also don't want to take the lazy person's approach on LinkedIn. Yeah, I'm sure like me, It's so annoying when people send you, oh, happy anniversary.
Oh, God. Oh.
Yeah, I hate that. And I didn't even realize I had a work anniversary and they're sending me this. So that means nothing. You want to be personal when you're engaging on social media. And don't be afraid to, in some cases, if you really want to connect with somebody, you might want to be very old fashioned and write a letter. Try some snails. Now snail mail has become new again because
Yeah.
no one does it.
Because it's empty. Yeah, it's totally empty. Yep.
Yeah.
It comes in your mailbox. So it,
Yeah, all I get is bills. It's so exciting to get a letter. You also might want to volunteer. There's so many organizations that could use your help. It's a great time to take courses, and I see all of you just by participating in this are eager to learn. And you want to practice, practice, practice. We can't practice enough in terms of personal branding. Practice with friends. When you meet people, give them that elevator pitch in a nice way. You don't want to immediately start giving it, but if you have the opportunity, it's a great way to practice.
so Mandy's asking, how far back do you need to have on LinkedIn? Can you delete old contacts that do not make sense?
To tell you the truth, I don't know if you can certainly, I don't know if you have the opportunity. Does anybody know, can you delete contacts on LinkedIn?
That's a good question. We have a big LinkedIn, we have a person from LinkedIn coming up who's going to do a whole sort of LinkedIn basics to get you back started. So Kate says you can delete them.
Okay.
But she's going to get us back to basics on LinkedIn and walk us through everything. And she works for them. She does communications. So she'll, that's a question to bring to her when that happens. And I don't think it really matters. I mean, there actually, if people look and see that you have tons and tons of contacts, I think that, don't you think that that's more appealing than fewer contacts, even if they're more focused? Because the contacts don't necessarily interact.
Right, exactly. No, I would definitely agree. The point is you have control over whom you reach out to.
Right.
So even there, if there are people there you don't want to have anything to do with, you don't have to, as long as they're not bothering you.
Wendy, what's the biggest mistake you see women our age making in building their personal brand?
That's a really good question. I think a lot of, I think older women, and I can speak for myself, I think that we were taught to be more demure, to not be out there promoting ourselves. And as I mentioned before, I think millennials are naturals, most of them, at doing this. And I think that we sort of hesitate. We don't want to be looked at as a braggart. And it's actually not bragging. You're giving, you're showing your value.
Right.
If you look at it that way, it doesn't necessarily feel like bragging, but I think it's just promoting. We're not natural self-promoters, unfortunately. I think that that is probably one of the biggest mistakes. I've had people say to me, "Oh, I don't believe in personal branding. What do I need to do that for?" And as I mentioned, you have a personal brand, so you really need to be doing something with it.
Well, I find what's interesting is when we started Covey, and we still are pretty much lifestyle, we're pretty wide in what we cover. We cover fashion, we cover beauty, we cover health. We kind of took it from the approach of what More Magazine was. But what's very interesting is what comes into me when people are looking for me to speak, when they're looking for me to, they always come to me for reinvention. And so many people say to me, why don't you just narrow this whole thing down to reinvention, so that much like the happiness lady or the blah, 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 you become the reinvention lady kind of thing. And so sometimes you have to look at, you're throwing out 20 things, but what is it that's coming back at you? How do other people see you? And of course, reinvention for us is quite wide. It can have to do with fashion, it can have to do with beauty. So we kind of took that angle into all those things we do. But I was surprised that what came back at me was so specific. And I think it's unexpected, but it's a good, if you can be really aware of how other people see you, you might find it in that original, study that you do when you ask people how they see
Yeah.
you.
Yeah.
Any questions, ladies? Because we've got a few more minutes, and then we're going to go into our little spin, and Wendy's going to give away one of her books.
I have one question.
Jump in.
Wendy, you had a slide before and it said, if you don't brand yourself, somebody else will, the 2 circles.
Yeah.
Did you say that?
Yes.
Okay, because I was going to quote you someplace, but I wanted to make sure.
Oh, yes, you can quote me. Thank you.
That's also like politics. I mean, that's what they say. The hard thing about politics is, if you don't get out there and brand yourself in politics, the other person will brand you as whatever they want to brand you as.
Exactly. And we've seen that happen so many times.
But I think you can think of your own personal brand in that same way, that you're not in politics, but that's what's going on. Because they're looking for a box. There are too many people for people to remember who they are. So they stick them in a box. And that's why it's so hard when you reinvent yourself to get out of that box, because it's just easy for everybody else to stick you somewhere so that they can remember who you are,
Well, the Trump is actually a master at that when he gives everybody those awful nicknames, but they do stick.
That's part of the branding.
So,
and the part of, if you don't brand yourself, he'll do it for you.
Yeah, he's more than ready to do it. Yeah.
Right, exactly. Do you have any more questions, guys? And otherwise, we'll go into our end. We can have one more question if you have anything. Let's see. Down here. So everybody likes the quote about branding. That's great. Rhina says it's been very helpful. Oh, good. This is our personal branding tip sheet that you'll get.
Everybody's going to get that.
And do we have your email? Wendy, can you type into the chat box your email so people
can? Because let me just make sure I can get up here. Just a second.
Oh, good. And you have workshops. Great.
Yes, I wanted to share that with everybody. Let me just get on this chat for a minute.
So you're going to put that into the chat box, and then we do our little sillies. We have a fun little wheel that we spin so you feel like you're at the Jersey Shore, so everybody can win something. So there's Wendy's email.
And this, Marissa will send this to you, but I'm having 4 1-hour-long workshops on personal branding. And Marissa will have the link for you for that.
Great. So let me just tell you what else we have coming up. Friday, this will be really fun. This is during the day, just so to alert you, we're changing our times to make it a little bit easier for people on the West Coast to get to us and not interfere with your dinners. Now that things are opening up, hopefully you're going to be going out to dinner or have things in the evenings. So 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, we're doing how to tell your life story, make it memorable, entertaining, stage-worthy, with Bridget Brown. She's an actor, and she's also a coach. And it's all about, I've been in some of these things, and it's all about telling your story. And if you can't tell your story, you can't have a brand because you don't know what your story is. And she makes it really fun, and she does all these acting exercises, which I've never done before, and she does all these breakout rooms. It's really fun. And you got all these people in there going, so in 3 minutes, you have to come up with blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, I'm not an actor. I don't know how to do this. They're like, you have to do it. So it's really kind of fun. It'll just stretch you a bit, and it's really fun. 11 a.m. on Friday. Mondays, if you haven't been to our Positive Mornings, they become our keystone, I think. It's with our 2 reinvention coaches, Wendy and Dana, who are just extraordinary. They give you a tool for the week, and we all talk, and it gets very deep. This morning was extraordinary. People were sharing some very intense things, and it's very beautiful. You're going to find a lot of friends there and a lot of cubby girls who you want to play with the idea that down the road, when this thing all opens up again, we're all going to get together in New Orleans, and also we'll open up our event in Arizona, and then we'll do something in New York, probably 2021 is what we're thinking. But this is how we can get to know each other to start. And then Monday, put this on your calendars, 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We have Stay Calm Amid Chaos, 3 practical tools, and that's with Sigrid Olsen. And she was, if you remember the shoe brand, Sigrid Olsen, she's a reinventor because her name was stolen from her when she was a fashion designer. And now she's into health and into all this other stuff. And then Wednesday, July 8th, we at 2 p.m. Again, we're bringing it into the daytime. How to create and launch an authentically sustainable brand with Marjorie Lau. Marjorie and I met each other when I was doing my degree up at Columbia, and she used to work for Lauder, and she's now launching her own brand.
It's 8 o'clock.
Totally sustainable, and she's going to tell us our journey and how you can do something like that. And she's a great, really smart person. She has an MBA from Wharton, and just a lovely human being. And then if you get on our mailing list, make sure you're getting our newsletters called Letter from Leslie so that you know what's up. We keep adding new things all the time. And I also want to hear from you guys what other topics you would like us to cover, because we can go find experts in almost anything. And if any of you want to present, let us know as well. Oh, good. There's your tip sheet. There's the link, guys. So pull this all down. Oh, good. Leslie Stevens said she read your book and it was great.
Oh, fantastic.
It was really great. And I knew some of the people that you profiled, so it was kind of fun.
Oh, I'm so delighted to hear that. Thank you.
Great. So thank you, guys. And hopefully I will see you. I guess our next thing is Friday in the afternoon. So come to Bridget's thing. You will have a lot of fun. Even if you're not an actor, honestly, I did the first one. It's fun. It'll stretch you and it'll make you laugh at yourself, which is great. So thank you, guys. It's 8:01, so we're going to say good night. Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Thank you. A big round for Wendy before we leave. Thank you, Wendy. Awesome.
Great folks. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. All right,
Okay.
guys.
Good
Ciao.
night. Ciao.